Okay, Silver, it's time for the theme song.
Yeah, Ben. What do I do?
Let's see. Oh, I know. You play the guitar.
Ben, I don't have any legs.
Oh, you're right. Okay, you play this.
I don't want to play that. I'll look silly.
Oh, come on. It'll be fun.
Nope. Not gonna do it.
It's for the chat.
Oh, okay. But they better not laugh.
All right, better get on out there. As most out there know, or at least I hope this is the case, there are many components to what makes video games. Design, programming, art, you know the drill. But a very prominent component that can make a big difference, even though it may not seem like it, is a game's audio work, especially the music.
Music has a very important job in not just games, but movies, television shows, radio shows, and that's to set emotion. Its job is ultimately to make an audience feel something, whether by creating its own tone or by amplifying a scene's emotional hit further. For instance, take the scene for Jurassic Park when its theme hits. It feels grand, it feels larger than life, looking at these old, ancient creatures brought back for one last hurrah.
And then we take the music out and...
They really do move in a mixture of animatronics and CGI.
Video game soundtracks have the added challenge of having songs that don't have much control over how long a scene lasts. Given that a player can just...
Look at me, Ben! I'm spinning in a circle in Skyrim!
With that being said, plenty of gaming OSTs have proven to be emotional, powerful, and memorable. Everyone's got their favorites, and we're here to talk about a few of our own. Now, something to keep in mind with this video is the lack of the top in the title. This is not in any sort of ranked order.
Though we will be ending this off with our personal top favorites, the challenge of ranking something as subjective as music is just something that isn't really in our department, as it were. Plus, it gives us the added benefit of coming back to this topic in a later video.
Setting up sequels before this video is even finished. What are you, a cinematic universe?
Hey man, sometimes you just gotta paint your eggs before it's Easter, you know?
Silver, literally no one's gonna get what you're referencing with that.
And?
You know what? Good point.
So to start things off, we're going to take a look at a relatively obscure one. An indie RPG made about half a decade ago that never really took off, which is quite a shame. The soundtrack was made by a single dude.
It's Undertale.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Thanks, Black Mage Funjamin.
Hey, this is just payback for the frogging.
You're still not over that?!
But yeah, Undertale's gotten quite the following in the last since it came out, and for good reason. And its soundtrack is a definite component to why that's the case. Which is funny because in concept, it probably shouldn't work. Rather than sticking to one consistent sound font, Undertale kinda mixes together a whole bunch of them through its OST. A little bit of Earthbound, a little bit of Mega Man X, a little bit of Chrono Trigger, a song straight out of Mario Paint Composer, and so on and so forth.
All these various sound fonts have distinct sounds to them, even though they were on the same console, so realistically, these shouldn't mesh together as well as they do in one game. But leave it to Tobias Foxes to pull it off.
Tobias Foxes?
Yes, legendary men of many talents earn the right to the ornate naming conventions of ye olden times. 'Tis what we do, Blackest Magus Benjaminus.
If you say so, Silverus Keybladis.
Now you're getting it. Now, I'm sure Undertale's soundtrack isn't everyone's cup of preferred drink, and hey, that's fair. It's a very simple soundtrack with lots of short songs that people could probably get sick of quickly, I get it. But I think its strength lies within how it's utilized in the game itself. Toby not limiting himself to a single sound font meant that he was more free in how he wanted to further personalize each character through their themes.
And this is especially apparent with the heavy use of a leitmotif in Undertale. For those unaware, a leitmotif is a melody that is reused in multiple songs to associate said melody with a specific character or feeling. For example, see how many songs in the Star Wars universe use that iconic do 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 melody to associate with the Empire. Point is, it's a very effective method, as we'll likely bring up again as the video goes on. But for the time being, Undertale uses it a lot, and very effectively no less.
Seriously, these songs are so interconnected with each other that at the time of writing this video, almost 6 years after Undertale's release, people are still unsure if each use of leitmotif has been found. And though this might be a cheat, this even extends past Undertale's own soundtrack. Smash Ultimate's version of Megalovania has Papyrus and Toriel's theme in it. Leave it to Toby to take those extra steps in a remix for a game that's not even his own.
Undertale's full of stellar pieces, if we hadn't made that clear yet. And picking one's favorite from the bunch will net you a lot of different answers. I've personally got two I wanted to bring to light. One area theme and one battle theme. My favorite area theme in the game is the theme of Waterfall. The instrumentation and melody really plays into how the area is both relaxing and unsettling at the same time. And my favorite battle theme is Asgore, the boss theme for, well, Asgore. It's another case of incorporating leitmotif, namely the battle theme for Toriel from earlier on in the game, but the way it uses it is just really intense and exciting for the battle going on.
My personal favorite area theme of the game is probably Snowden. I don't have too much of a reason outside of it sounding nice, but it's kind of optimistic in a sense. It matches the snowy aesthetic, and honestly, it just kind of makes me want to be in the snow. Favorite battle theme, honestly, probably being Megalovania, no lie. I know it technically didn't originate from the game, but being real, the Undertale version isn't just the best known version, it's the best one, period. It sounds frantic, desperate, and every terrible feeling a dirty brother killer deserves to feel, and I love it.
The Undertale version of the song also helps birth an entire genre of music, fun fact.
Wait, what genre?
The Megalovania genre.
You ready for this?
Let's go! Bit of sense in my life, a little bit of sense by my side.
Put the tuba down, Silver.
What a shame that I'm editing the video.
And now for complete tonal whiplash, let's go from a subversive indie RPG about morality and survival to Mario.
Salutations, my compatriots and brother Mario! On what grand adventure shall we be partaking in today? Perhaps it shall be tearing through the mall at illegal speeds in tiny go-karts and motorbikes with particularly funky gorillas! Oh, what fun!
With that said, let's talk about Mario Kart Wii. Now, to be perfectly honest, picking a favorite Mario soundtrack was absolutely no easy feat, because that's one thing they've managed to get consistently right for pretty much the entirety of the Plumber's 35-plus year run. Some better than others, of course, but most Mario soundtracks are wonderful, and in my case, Mario Kart Wii has always been my favorite.
I'm gonna be real, I don't really know what makes a kart racer soundtrack really work. Like, I know it's gotta be fast enough to make what you're doing feel like racing, and I know it's gotta match with the overall setting of the plays, but given that Mario Kart as a whole just has so many diverse settings and so many diverse songs as a result, a favorite soundtrack really just comes down to preference at the end of the day. Honestly, I might prefer 8, but just barely. Wii's got a slappin' soundtrack.
You're not wrong about that at all, Silver. I don't really have much of a deep reason as to why I like Wii's soundtrack over the other kart games, or even other Mario games. Granted, I do think nostalgia may have a bit of a part to play in it, but there's a reason we're not ranking this. We can pull moves like this. Regardless, Mario Kart Wii's OST is really good at capturing both the franticness of the races and the atmosphere each track is going for, while allowing for each song to be distinct from one another. Because of that, picking a favorite tune in this OST is far from an easy feat. So I'm gonna be that guy and let Silver go over his pick first.
Ooh, boy, that's tricky even for me. My favorite track theme is probably Rainbow Road. Honestly, Mario Kart always makes me a sucker for Rainbow Road. It just usually ends up being my favorite track, and Wii's got a killer song for it in its rendition. Aside from that, I also really like Bowser's Castle. It's a nice dynamic theme that changes whether you're in or out of the castle, and mixing in the castle theme from the original Super Mario Bros. Is a really cool move on their end. It sounds nice and haunting, perfect for a castle that is oddly inhospitable for any creature to live in, much less house an army.
As for me... Silver, want to go over another example to buy me some time?
Nope, you've had enough time. Get talking.
But it's so hard to pick a favorite. Okay, fine. I'm gonna go with Toad's Factory. You were talking about slapping soundtracks earlier, Silver. This here's a song that really slaps. And hey, it's also got that dynamic changing feature that Bowser's Castle has. And it really helps amplify the jazzy nature of this theme. Though I would also love to give a shout out to a few non-racetrack songs in the soundtrack. Firstly, both songs used in the credits are amazing and never fail to give me that warm nostalgia feeling. I love it. But also, weird as it is to say, the music used on the various offline menus, how it dynamically amplifies as you progress from the mode select to the character select to the tack select. How it dynamically amplifies as you progress from the mode select to the character select to the track select. It's really cool, and it's a really soothing song on top of that.
And with that, how's about we go through another wave of tonal whiplash?
In what way?
A plague has beset our land, one that corrupts our creatures and is killing our small, dying race. You have been equipped with nothing more than your small knife and your hope as you venture a dark, decaying land, finding beauty in small, fragile life.
The Dark Souls of Metroidvanias!
I feel like Zote now.
Now, admittedly, I haven't gotten around to playing Hollow Knight yet. It's been sitting in my backlog for longer than I'd like to admit, but then again, that backlog is practically a mountain at this point. Oops. So I'm not incredibly familiar with its soundtrack. With that said, I'm gonna let Silver take the reins for this segment, since, well, he's the reason it's in this video.
Hollow Knight has been a particular favorite of mine in terms of indie games, something that I'm sure anyone who's been watching my streams has noticed. The music, I feel, is very effective though. It's usually very mellow, mostly in the back of your mind as you're taking these dangerous landscapes and making them less dangerous through your own skill. The soundtrack usually remains incredibly calm, only ramping up in forced fights or bosses, and trust me, the boss music can get intense. Anyone who's played Hollow Knight knows that just because it's not Soulsborne hard doesn't mean it won't break your back at points, and the music definitely provides that feeling, implementing things like choir and grand orchestra to really set the mood for a difficult boss. Talking about that though, my favorite area theme would probably have to be the City of Tears. It's a beautiful place, the civilians still ravaged by the infection, but the landscape honestly looking just as pristine as it would have been when it was at its prime. The music is nice, soft, and reflective of the city's beauty, and whoever did the choir singing was really putting in their work. My favorite battle theme, though? I mean, I gotta give it up for my man, the Nightmare King Grimm. It's frantic, it's immediately in your face, much like Nightmare Grimm, and the instrumentals make it feel like a nightmare circus.
Yeah, for what I have heard of the soundtrack, I also really like Nightmare King. Though the regular Grimm theme's pretty solid as well.
Ben, play Hollow Knight.
I will. Eventually.
No, do it now.
During the video?
Yes, during the video.
No. I don't think I will. That said, let's go through more tonal whiplash, as we now jump to one of the most stylish rhythm games of the last decade, Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure. To those who don't know, Rhythm Thief's basically what would happen if you took the feel and tone of something like Professor Layton or Ace Attorney, made about a rhythmic thief going up against a resurrected Napoleon Bonaparte, and replaced court cases and being reminded of puzzles with rhythm-based minigames. With Rhythm Thief being a rhythm game, you'd certainly hope it'd have stellar music, since, well, the whole game's based around it by nature. And sure enough, Rhythm Thief excels in that regard. The scenarios Phantomar gets himself into are continuously zany and over the top, whether it be working as a chef, or sneaking into the Louvre, or beating up waves of Napoleon soldiers with your fist, or just shooting them when you get to play as Inspector Vergier.
Under French law, a person who kills in self-defense when threatened with imminent bodily harm is not guilty of murder.
Point is, the music continuously fits with these crazy scenarios. The soundtrack actually goes a fair few directions with genre and instrumentation, but they consistently fit each minigame and scenario like a glove. And that's before mentioning the minigames that reference two of SEGA's other rhythm games, Samba de Amigo and Space Channel 5. Right down to both playing like the games they're homaging and even using music from their games of origin. Though with far less alien shooting or Michael Jackson in the case of the Space Channel 5 minigames.
SEGA did what now with MJ?
Choosing favorite songs in the OST with all this in mind is a tough thing to do, but I do have a few to bring up. The obvious one that a lot of people are probably familiar with nowadays, thanks to it going viral on TikTok apparently, would be Looting the Louvre, which, yeah, that one slaps pretty well.
3, 2, 1, go!
Though my personal favorite is probably the theme for Mastermind, one of the last levels in the game. Mixing together the violin motif from Marie's levels with the more jazzy feel often played in Phantom Mars levels just makes for a really nice treat to the ears.
Game I really need to sink my teeth into at some point, and it'd be nice to do so on a system with a soundtrack that wasn't absolutely neutered. But being real, On Guard Jean-Francois is really good. I love me some church organs that go fast in a boss fight, and I also love me some church organs. Also, I need to bring this to attention because I genuinely just can't help myself.
But this weapon is invincible. Sorry, but it's very invincible.
Man, this game's been out for 9 years now. We're never getting that sequel, are we?
Actually, on the topic of SEGA games, it's time to fulfill that Sonic quota! I'm never getting my soul back.
Even when talking about something not directly Sonic related, we can't escape it.
Something something it's no use.
Something something.
When everything you know has come in collision with
Picking a Sonic soundtrack, at least for me, was honestly just as difficult as picking something from Mario because, being real, the franchise is oddly consistent with quality soundtracks. Well, okay, it was, but Lost World and Forces were at least collectively okay, and we just kind of pretend the Boom games never happened, so...
Still feel bad for Big Red Button. But yeah, I'm on the same boat as Silver. The Sonic series is filled with a ton of top-tier soundtracks, so narrowing it down to one was a struggle. Between Adventure 2's abundance of Crush 40 rock pieces, and also Pumpkin Hill, Unleashed's pretty atmospheric collection both for the day and night levels, the latter you'll never hear because of... And even as recent as Team Sonic Racing, the remixes it has are utterly fantastic.
Our choice to go with Sonic Heroes I don't think was unwarranted, though. I feel like it has the advantages the original Adventure soundtrack had of being pretty diverse, while overall just feeling cleaner than it. Songs like Frog Forest are pleasant to listen to, Seaside Hills theme honestly hits me right in the nostalgia nodes, and Hang Castle... Actually, it just hit me that Eggman decided to make a haunted castle as a trap. I mean, either way, the song slaps really well.
And hey, even if you do find yourself preferring Jun Sonoe just going to town on his electric guitar, you've got songs like Egg Fleet and the Egg Emperor boss theme for just the occasion. Though of course, on the topic of Crush 40, we can't neglect to mention how they gave us not one, but two amazing vocal themes, between the Sonic Heroes theme song and especially the incredible What I'm Made Of.
Trying to reach inside of me, trying to drain my energy. Let me show you just what I'm made of. Simple curiosity, trying to take a bite of me. Let me show you just what I'm made of now.
Of course, course, you don't bring up the soundtrack of Sonic Heroes without bringing up what is essentially the magnum opus of one Gunnar Nelson.
I mean, hey, danger does hide when the Hyper Bee and Ninja Stars fly for a reason.
The muscle is Vector, the Karma Collector, and they have sworn to fight for you.
Okay, yeah, just blare the theme.
Failed detectives, you all on your side. Failed directives, tracking down your crimes. Come along for the ride. Truth can run but not hide. For all the game is on now.
Only someone with a name as cool as Gunnar Nelson could make a tune like that. Seriously, his name's Gunnar Nelson! That's not even fair!
On the topic of platformers, let's hop on over to my bread and butter on this channel, good old Crash Bandicoot. While not quite to the degree of Sonic, this series does consistently have some great OSTs. Whether it be Josh Mansel's work for the Naughty Dog games, or Spiral Mouth's amazing acapella for Twin Sandy and Tag Team Racing, and I'm gonna stop stalling because I know many of you know where I'm going with this. This segment's about Wrath of Cortex.
Benjamin, another Crash Bandicoot hot take. Any more of these, and we're gonna have to put another hole in our own zone layer.
It's funny because Wrath of Cortex is themed around natural disasters.
One could argue this game is a natural disaster.
Proud of that one?
I mean, I haven't even played Wrath of Cortex, so ask me again in a few years.
I know Wrath of Cortex is kinda around the Crash community, myself included to an extent, but one hill I will absolutely die on is that Wrath of Cortex's soundtrack is amazing. It was composed by Andy Blythe and Martin Justra, the go-to composers for a lot of Traveler's Tales games back in the day, and I consider them one of the video game kings of you didn't need to go this hard on the soundtrack, up there with David Wise and Tim Fallon.
It was just Pictionary, Tim!
In Blythe and Justra's case, they largely showcased their talents in stuff like the Pixar tie-in games, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, and Finding Nemo. But Wrath of Cortex is where I think they were at their best, providing a unique style for a Crash OST that hasn't really been replicated since, allowing it to really stand out. And man, it stands out for all the right reasons.
The soundtrack sounds a fair bit more electronic, for lack of a better term. In comparison to the previous Crash games, at least. It still manages to keep that Crash feel, though, even with this emphasis, and also comes with the unique trait of having an original song for every single level in the game, something that was unheard of for a Crash game at that point.
Like many cases before, picking specific favorites is far from easy to do, but I'll try to pick a few of my favorites to showcase. The Gauntlet's one I love going back to a lot. But then there's also Fahrenheit Frenzy with its slower, more ominous tone. Or Crate Balls of Fire for how crazy it gets with the orchestration by the end. Man, I could probably list the whole soundtrack as my favorite songs of the soundtrack, to be honest. No song is a dud.
I'm sorry, did you say that level was called Crate Balls of Fire?
Yeah, Crash levels tend to go with cheesy puns like that.
I guess I feel that trend really bears repeating.
Hey! Oh, a Final Fantasy game next, huh? So many to choose from. Which to go with?
Get in, bro, we're gonna beat up a 2,000-year-old man in a cowboy hat.
I'll pack the cup noodles!
Road trip!
Going down!
I imagine this may be a bit of a controversial choice, but first, let me remind you that this isn't an ordered list, so we're not necessarily saying Final Fantasy XV's soundtrack is the best in the series.
And secondly, I've got Yoko Shimomura bias, and I'm the Silver Keyblade.
That being said, 15's soundtrack is certainly a strong one. As we said before, it was primarily composed by Yoko Shimomura, the mastermind behind soundtracks like Street Fighter II, the Mario and Luigi games, and, as Silver noted, Kingdom Hearts. But through the DLC storylines released after the game came out, we got quite a few guest composers, such as Keiichi Okabe of the Nier series, Naoshi Mizuta of Street Fighter Alpha, Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Trigger, heck yes, and Final Fantasy Legend himself, Nobuo Uematsu. Point is, this game had an all-star collection of composers.
And they certainly shine in this game. A lot of these pieces are really nice to listen to. Usually, I know I love a good video game soundtrack when I go out of my way to listen to the songs outside of the games they're in, and they're honestly almost as good without context as they are with it, and that is strong songwriting. There have been days where I've been working, and I just kind of sit and think to myself, yeah, this feels like a Somnus day.
Pretty much on the same boat in that regard. The amount of times I've come back to Sunset Waltz when I need some relaxing background music while I work is too many to count. The music really helps make the exploring of 15's world oddly comfy, which is kind of the tone they were going with for a fair bit of the game, so hey, mission accomplished. But when the music needs to get more intense, whoo boy does it do so! The go-to example, of course, is none other than Veiled in Black, which even after all these years, slaps so good.
Being real, Veiled in Black's arrangement is my personal favorite battle theme. Just the way it starts is just and that helps increase the serotonin for the rest of the day.
And that's just one battle theme out of many, many great ones. The Empire battle theme, the various versions of Apocalypsis, and then the DLCs happened. There's a lot of great examples we could go with, but I'm personally going to bring light to Bahamut's battle theme from the Comrades expansion, which is one of the songs Nobuo Uematsu composed, and man does it really show. I think that could have been for the final battle of the overarching DLC storyline if Square Enix hadn't canceled the DLC prematurely.
Yeah, it's a Somnus kind of day.
Or is it a Somnus kind of day?
I don't know, I just hope that when Final Fantasy 15's story ends in Verum Rex, it's a strong finish.
Patience, Silver. We'll get on to Nomura's Wild Ride shortly.
Yeah, at the tail end of this list.
Cheeky segue time!
Get it? Cause tail? Leave a like, a comment, and a subscribe.
Thank you, Silver. Anyway, I think it was pretty obvious that a video like this from yours truly would have Dust and Elysian Tale brought up at some point. You know, favorite game of all time and all.
I mean, your favorite game of all time doesn't necessarily have to have good music. Someone's favorite game could be...
Anyway, back to talking about Dust. I've made it clear in my review of the game how much I love the soundtrack, and the point still stands. It just oozes with atmosphere, perfectly fitting each place it's put like a glove. Whether that be ominous and mysterious like with the Siramong Caverns, or something more soothing and calm like with the Blackmore Mountains. Or intense and frantic, like with the various boss themes. Even so far as the map theme is really relaxing to listen to.
Dust always gave me some really relaxing vibes when listening to it while playing. Except when it doesn't, granted, but even during the normal battles, it always felt sort of calm, like I was facing an obstacle for sure, but one that I could definitely overcome. You know, except when it doesn't. Boss themes are really great too. A lot of the bosses in Dust require fast movement, and the music matches that intensity to boot. For instance, when you're fighting someone who has a really bad temper and a short fuse.
Because Short Fuse actually ended up being used for Baron Kane's fight, while Heavy Bones ended up as Fuse's boss theme. But of course, given the overall tone of the game, I couldn't forget to mention the slower, more melancholy songs, such as the title theme, and of course, the credits theme, Gone Home. I could go on more, but I've done a whole half-hour video on why I love this game so much, so you can just go watch that to hear me gush.
Wow, plugging your content in the middle of the video? Really? I thought you were above that.
For real? For real? For real? For real? For real? For real?
Well, anyway, now that you've gotten your gushing done for the time being, I believe it's my turn to do so. To remind everyone, these final two soundtracks we'll be talking about are our personal favorites, so to start off with mine... Hi, I'm the Silver Keyblade. Some people might know me for Kingdom Hearts 3 being my favorite game, so you'd probably expect that game to also have my favorite soundtrack. I mean, being real, even the weakest games have some good bangers in them. But while I've thought about that, and I thought hard about it, the songs in 3 are really good, but they also had years and years of other games to essentially build their songs on. Hearts as 1 couldn't have been as good without hearing Roxas' theme so many times prior is what I'm getting at. Still really good, but not as good as it is right now.
With that said, Kingdom Hearts 2?
Kingdom Hearts 2! Final mix. Now this game? This game has really good songs, and a large majority of it is original. This is where Roxas' theme started, Xemnas' theme, Sora's theme, funnily enough. Took them 2 whole games to decide on that, in fact. A good chunk of the most memorable, awesome themes you hear in Kingdom Hearts, you have this game to thank. How often do you go around the Kingdom Hearts community without hearing the 13th struggle? Or even in terms of just area themes, I've heard from multiple people that lazy afternoons is their study music, and I absolutely understand. It's just nice, calm music you can have on in the background while you do whatever task you're doing, like skateboarding to deliver packages to birds.
Skateboarding to deliver packages to birds. Somehow not even close to being the weirdest thing to happen in this series.
I'll be real, I don't think there's a single bad song in this game. I mean, honestly, I don't think there's a single bad song in this franchise, but even the tamer songs that only hang out in the recesses of my mind are still fun to listen to.
And that's before even mentioning the really heavy hitters in the game. The one that immediately comes to mind for me is The Other Promise, the song that plays when fighting Roxas near the end of the game. Just, that poor boy's gone through so much emotional turmoil by that point, and the battle's rendition of his theme really reflects that.
But to avoid attracting more attention from, softnicks, let's move on to the next game, which is not only Benjamin's personal favorite soundtrack, but will also hopefully avoid any copyright claim. Oh dear, it's a Nintendo game.
It's okay, Silver. Nintendo's gotten mostly better about that. Mostly.
Alright, but I still have the woods and nails on standby. If I gotta barricade your dimensional vortex thingy, I will find a way.
Much appreciated. Anyway, to end this off, let's talk about Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. To anyone who's not familiar with the DKC series and their soundtracks, feel free to get your laughter or confused noises out of your system. To those who are familiar with them, well, you get where I'm going with this. The Donkey Kong Country games as a whole have fantastic soundtracks, consistently and perfectly capturing the atmospheric feel they aim for, while still having distinct and memorable melodies in many cases. DKC 1 already was a highlight of musical work, with Aquatic Ambience especially being considered one of the best video game tracks of all time for a reason. But then DKC 2 steps in and just completely steals the competition.
I get it.
Get what?
You know, steal the competition. Because the Kremlings are pirates who steal stuff. Bananas and gorillas in particular. You know, the Donkey Kong universe has a very strange economy.
More of an attempting to starve the enemy rather than stealing their currency.
Well, that got dark fast.
Oh yeah, K. Rool and his army aren't ones to mess around, and DKC 2's soundtrack really captures that feeling, as you spend the game infiltrating their home turf. Right from the start of the game, you've got some truly intense orchestral pieces, well, orchestral for an SNES sound font, to set the tone of this more ominous adventure. And that atmosphere just continues to be at full force throughout the game. DKC 2 was the very first game that I was truly mesmerized by a game's soundtrack, simply for how well it captures the feel it's going for at any given moment. The most famous example of this in the game is, of course, Stickerbush Symphony, a song that feels both soothing and oddly melancholy. I remember as a kid getting stuck on one of the levels it plays on, and in a way, it almost felt like it played into a feeling of hopelessness for the Kongs. Like they weren't sure they were going to be able to succeed. I'm definitely reading too deep into that, but either way, the music did a fantastic job in getting me invested in their journey at what I viewed as the low point.
I'd honestly argue that Stickerbush Symphony is the strongest song in Donkey Kong Country's lineup, not even just in 2, it's just a really nice sounding song. And honestly, I think a lot of people might agree to a certain point. The song was brought back in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and while I don't think necessarily it's better, it does hit a very certain nostalgic chord with me.
A totally fair point. I remember it sticking out to me as well when playing through Subspace. But of course, DKC2 has more going for it than just Stickerbush Symphony. Another fantastic example of how well it captures the melancholy but also chill feeling is Forest Interlude, the main song for the spooky forest levels. It certainly fits, but it's also oddly soothing to listen to. Like with KH2 Final Mix, I don't think DKC2 has a single dud in its soundtrack. David Wise did a phenomenal job with composing this game, continuously capturing the feeling of making your way through the belly of the beast, while also being calm and soothing. But hey, if the moment needs to get intense, he's excellent at capturing that too, with songs like Lockjaw's Saga or the fantastic Crocodile Cacophony. Easily my favorite song on the soundtrack, and one of my favorite songs in really any video game, has got to be In a Snowbound Land. It only plays 3 times in the game, but man, it's nothing short of absolutely beautiful.
Definitely a contender for strongest SNES soundtrack. Of course, there's a lot of those. I mean, have you heard of Family Feud for the SNES? Killer OST.
Funny you mentioned Killer during a DKC segment. Did you know that Funky's theme in DKC 1 was actually originally written to be used in Killer Instinct, another one of Rare's games?
I think this combined with all the Aragon knowledge makes me wonder if you're actually the physical manifestation of knowledge of obscure video game trivia.
Aw, you flatter me, Silver. Researching pointless trivia on entertainment media is a personal hobby.
Well, I'm certain when you hit your next video, you'll find a way to connect Over the Hedge's DS game with, I don't know, Mass Effect? Surely it's gotta be doable.
I'll get back to you on that one. But anyway, we should probably wrap this up before our ramblings go until 3 a.m. like they tend to.
Speaking of that, how does time work here? Is this Earth? Are we standing on ground? Well, I mean, I don't have legs, so am I even standing? How do you get electricity here? Do you keep a television here?
This has been Black Mage Benjamin, and until the next video, have a nice day, everybody.
Hey, don't interrupt me! That's rude!